Okay, what can I say? Huge welcome to Us Two. Thank you so much. I'm Helen. I head up design at Us Two globally, and I have to say thank you so much to all of you for braving the rain, tube strikes, anything else that London's thrown at you. So you're here, and it's great to see old faces and new. And I think it's going to be a really exciting discussion. Claire's going to say I've got to do a bit of housekeeping. If you hear a high-pitched fire sound, follow us calmly at that door there. Don't be worried. It's all going to be okay. But that's our fire exit, which is a good segue into the topic of today's discussion, which is all about trust, from fires to trust, and kind of trust at the age of AI. I think is one that I'm a bit obsessed with at the moment. It's really interesting because I think a lot of the discourse in AI is about efficiency, understanding, making sure that we're kind of working as quickly as possible. But what hasn't been covered so much, and what we see across our sort of client work, where we're really creating experiences that people are kind of picking up and really having to run with, is how these new experiences require really different types of relationships, and how do they feel for customers and for teams that are having to work in different ways. Have got new agents and models, and that I think is super interesting. So for 20 years, Us Two has been building digital products that really earn a place in people's lives, that they return to, that they stick with again and again. And often we're working in industries that are really heavily regulated. So we work a lot in healthcare. I was just talking about some of that with some of the people that joined us today, financial services, education. I think in all of that, sort of certainty is really critical. And so in all of our work, our kind of job is to build trusted experiences that had one underlying tenet, right, as designers, as product people. And that's to make the unpredictable predictable. That's what we're kind of really setting out to do. And so over the years, as designers and product teams, our processes have really kind of formulated to deliver that. So we've had, pattern libraries, flows with one kind of direction, one correct path, and even I think the emotional word of brand expression has been kind of made into a system. And UX at its core was kind of this idea of predictability engineering. We were the ones that removed ambiguity for customers, and trust is very much built on, is it consistent? Is it familiar? Can I kind of control it? And I think what's really interesting is AI has completely changed that. By its very nature, it's non-deterministic. So you can ask it, the same question and always get a different output. And yet the stakes are so much higher for all the experiences that we're delivering. So agents are now managing our health, our kind of finances, our work life, our home lives. And we have systems that are interpreting and reasoning and acting on our behalf, but often really out of sight and quite kind of invisible systems. And so the question becomes, how do we build trust in something that we can't see, predict, or fully govern? And how do we really kind of build that trust? And I think with some of the work we've been looking at with clients, new questions in these non-deterministic systems have come up. So, how do you orientate in something? Where am I? How do you explain why something happened? Have you got agency to kind of steer or undo it? And what's persisting between different sessions, and what if something goes wrong? And I think these are questions that are coming up again and again. And hopefully, I think our panel will have a really good discussion getting into that. Some of the kind of projects we've worked on, I think Pi, which was the first kind of emotionally intelligent AI assistant, we really had to kind of move from something that was very blank, that was just a blinking cursor, a really stripped back interface. Again, that sort of invisibility. And look at how does brand show up and how do you connect with a bit more of a personality in that. With our work with Reuters, Reuters has got journalistic trust principles absolutely at its core. So this was all about kind of legibility and making sure that building trust through users' understanding of why something was surfaced. And lastly, a project that we've just launched with RVO Health, which was a smoking cessation product, which is kind of helping AI coach people into giving up smoking. Actually, we had to build a whole new set of tools in order to test that as we go. So I think a lot of the processes we're all using are kind of changing to build that trust as we go. And I think the foundations that we're building on are more important than ever, and making sure we've got that right. So I think our panel is going to get into much of this detail. We've got wonderful people. Josh and Tessa are joining us. They'll kind of introduce themselves shortly. And Ali and Taylor from Us Two, and we're going to be moderated by Claire. So yeah, without further ado, over to you all.
Thank you so much for that, Helen. All right, so We know that AI is moving very quickly, and I don't want to go through the general tropes of like how's it changing, your day to day. So I want to say more specifically, as you introduce yourself, please let me know your name, your role, and the most recent way AI has changed the work that you're doing, be it as a creative, an engineer, or a marketer. And I realized I had not introduced myself. I'm Claire. I use she, her pronouns, and I lead growth and marketing here at us2. Over here.
Hi everyone, I'm Taylor. I'm a design principal here at us2, and I've been here for 5.5 years. So you would have seen the whole AI trajectory happen through that entire time. I think AI, particularly in my role as a designer, has changed the way we can get things into people's hands quickly. So obviously, with the rise of AI prototyping tools, with the ability for us to put things and get actual good, rich, sticky feedback on things rather than just done Figma prototype, has changed things for us and means that actually the feedback that we're getting is so much more genuine and actually valuable to us to develop something of interest. And I'm really enjoying getting hands on tools that are changing every day, essentially.
Yes. Good evening, I'm Tessa. I am currently the CMO at C-Point, which is a B2B fintech replacing the finance back for startups. I started yesterday, so my useful anecdotes of C-Point are quite limited. But I spent the last 3.5 years at Block, which has been famously making headlines in the AI space. And so I can say that my day-to-day experience as a marketeer there just changed completely in the last 3 months. So I built a multi-agent orchestration system that now does my entire job for me. And so it has GTM, it has brand, it has UX research, it builds landing pages, it builds A/B testing tools, it does like a scary amount of stuff that I'm a little bit frightened of myself. So I'm right now like rebuilding that entire system, minus Block IP, for my new business, and figuring out how that's going to work in a much smaller team.
Hi everyone, I'm Alistair. I'm an engineering principal here at us2. Welcome to us2. Nice to see you all. My pronouns are he, him. It's a good question. The most recent time, AI. I think on Friday last week, we had sprint demo for the project I'm working on at the moment. And I use AI a lot in my text editor to give me a productivity boost. And an hour and a half for the demo, there were some bugs to fix. And I hit a usage limit. I'd been going a bit, but luckily I've been staying quite close to the code and I was able to fix them. And to me, it was a reminder of, you can't give away all your power to these things, and I was pleased that I hadn't. So yeah, I don't know if that's the right sort of anecdote there.
Hello, I'm Josh. I am VP of Design at Wise, and we say capital D design, so product design, content design, user research, design operations. Hopefully you know what Wise is. If you don't, sign up. Get your salary deposited there. You'll be really happy that you did. I've been using AI a lot to get rid of all the boring things in my life. Like personal productivity is kind of the thing I've been using it for the most. I find it's a really good way of reducing toil. Like I used to say, like I hate being a manager, but I didn't go to art school, so I could like sit in a spreadsheet all day long. And so now, like AI sits in a spreadsheet for me, and other things. But yeah, it's been really cool to sort of like build your own sort of like, or build my own little ecosystem of minions. Go do all like dreary stuff for me while I'm doing cool stuff.
Excellent. All right. Well, jumping right in. Obviously, agentic and AI-enabled experiences have completely changed the game for what product teams can do. And so my first question, quite broad, how are you designing for experiences and systems that evolve in real time? And Ali, I'd love it if you'd kick us off.
Sure, thanks, Claire. So systems, I was immediately thought design systems here. We do a lot of that. And we had an engineer on my project recently join, Mew, and asked the question, how much orchestration should we be doing? Presumably a design system is just a bunch of components. You can have an agents.md file with all the quality and all the patterns and stuff, and then you can just generate the components. And we're a team. How do you work together in a team? And something that struck me in this age of generative UI, Google have just been announced lots of shiny new stuff, and people are talking about the death of the web because you can say to Google, generate me a fitness tracker, and it will just produce the UI right there in the results. And this is really, really like cool, exciting stuff. But that relies on there being a design system that isn't just accessible and well engineered and high quality. All of that takes human ingenuity and creativity. But it also now has to be aware of the data structures, the APIs. It needs to be defined as like each component is its own tool that an agent can in theory call. And this is all more work that we have to do. So yeah, it's kind of like on the one hand, AI giveth, but on the other hand, it demands a lot more of you. Like we've got to do all this stuff now. And so yeah, I think building into design systems those kind of patterns and things, you will end up generating some stuff, but you'll be doing more stuff around it, so you can produce these kind of experiences.
Yeah. Josh, you talked a little bit yesterday when we were having this conversation about how, a lot of it is like start as you intend to continue. And if you haven't taken the time to build those design systems, build everything from the outset with your data, that it's going to kind of amplify the challenges that maybe already existed within your organization. Can you tell us a little bit about your experience with that?
Yeah, I mean, like, I think I've heard this in every AI conversation I've had recently. The people like kind of resolve to, if your company or your organization or whatever is already a big, sloppy, disorganized mess, AI is just going to make you bigger, sloppier, and more disorganized. It's just going to amplify what's already there. And so I think like it, in a boring way, like documentation becomes more important than ever. Yeah, because like I feel like everybody, like we were just talking about this before the thing. It's like, oh, it's supposed to make everything so much more efficient, so we can like have a 4-day work week and like a time of abundance. I'm like, why am I so busy right now? And I feel like that everybody feels that way. I think it's kind of a result of that, right? It's like it's just amplifying a lot of the inefficiencies that already exist in a lot of systems.
I think there's a huge part from the consumer side as well when people aren't accustomed to a non-deterministic generated interface or products being announced. So there's not a trust with that, and there's not a comfort level with how that's being generated. So I think that makes it difficult as well when you're building products that people are trying to consume and use, is that they're not comfortable knowing how to or when to use them or what they can do. So therefore, it kind of isn't delivering any value to them yet because they still don't know what it's doing. I think there's a huge push for this minute. AI is categorizing a lot of different things currently, but soon I believe it will just be a function or a thing or a task that someone can do, and AI will actually doing it for them. People won't particularly care that this AI as long as it's delivering genuine value to them, and it'd just be something that's found on their phone or device at that point.
I think you've touched on something that's, kind of what we're all here to talk about, right? Like, how do you build and maintain that trust with users when you can't even necessarily communicate exactly what experience they're going to have? And we can talk about general benefits and general desired outcomes, but we can't take them on the journey the same way. And I think this is all the more critical in highly regulated industries. Us too, as we mentioned, works a lot in the healthcare and fintech space, and obviously we've got some fintech and financial services folks here. Tess, I'd love to hear, I guess, how are you getting ahead of the trust gap between regulatory governance and these intelligent systems that we're using to build these experiences?
Well, fun fact, Josh and I were actually at Wise together for a joyous. I mean, this is just a school reunion, it's fine. That's nice. But one thing I really learned from Wise is that trust builds transparency builds trust. It's such a really strongly ingrained part of their values, their brand values, and it really came through everything that Claire, a lot of the work you did. So
It really is a reunion.
Yeah, it is. Well, so I feel like that's maybe an approach that I'm starting to see come up. And when I was busy scrabbling around looking for a C-point anecdote yesterday on my first day, one of the things that they were talking about is one of the features they have in the product is the ability to scrape your inbox for all of your invoices and categorize all of your invoices and payments within the tool, so you can then easily go in and see which ones you can pay, etc. And what they built into the design was a confidence score. So rather than having, somewhere that's saying, oh, look over here, like shiny little dots, this means you're using AI, the whole product is built on AI rails. So they needed a different design approach that gave you some sense of like, we're pretty confident that this is correct, but this one down here may not be, and you might want to pay attention. So yeah, I think that the transparency and trust piece is going to be huge.
Yeah. I mean, Josh, it'd actually be really interesting to hear if you're seeing that on the product side as well.
Yeah. We haven't actually. We've taken kind of an interesting approach towards AI, I think, and I think it's been smart in retrospect. Although I think some folks have been kind of frustrated by it. But basically, like, we've been using machine learning and AI for things like anti-money laundering, fraud detection, all that kind of stuff for ages, right? Because it's like, what's the worst that's going to happen? You're going to catch more criminals than people anyway. Like, it's, there's pretty much no downside, I don't think. And then, like, there's places where it's expected, like where like chatbots have been around forever, and so like it's obvious to use it for customer service. People just want it to be more capable. On the front end, though, we haven't really like gone full on into that universe yet. I think we'll probably end up maybe at some point like doing like a universal search component with it or something like that. But there's still like a lot of distrust of AI out there, and so like as a financial services company, I don't think you really want to like barrel down that path too cavalierly, because I don't know that everybody. Like, do you really want like Anthropic to like manage all your money? Like, maybe like that.
Yeah. I mean,
I want to be the first one.
Right. Yeah. Let someone else try it first.
Like, are you gonna sign up for Elon Musk's like brain worm? Like, maybe version 2.
And I think this is like an evolution of where we've been anyway, right? Like, you give Amazon and Spotify and all these different like kind of logged in experiences a lot of data, but like you see that value exchange pretty transparently. I think it's a little bit harder with AI, and actually it's interesting because you've got an inbox scraping tool, and I know that we talked yesterday about that you guys are trying to figure out how do we build these models not using any personal identifiable information, because obviously for regulatory reasons you can't. Does that mean that you're hiring a different type of person to be a part of your team, to be building a different type of engineer or a different type of designer?
Not personally. Like, for me, like, I've always, in hiring, it's always been like trying to hire for team casting and like making sure that people have complementary skills. And I've always put a pretty high like value on people who can prototype, and not just in like, I can make a clickable prototype in Figma. Like, do you know HTML, CSS, and JavaScript? It's like that's been kind of one of the things I've always looked for forever. And so just by doing that naturally, you kind of, I think, you like index towards a sort of curiosity that I think is very like widely applicable. Whether it's, I was doing Flash work 25 years ago, and now it's like completely useless skill at this point. And so, but like, taking to AI is not really that like scary, because it's just like, okay, cool, this is the new thing I have to learn now. So I think if you find people that are always doing that, you're kind of going to be fine, or at least you'll be less worse off than everybody else around you when machines take over and kill us.
Right. Positive take.
I think to Josh's note there, I think it's about trying to find the people who are interested in building and slowing down sometimes rather than speeding up, like asking the right questions, not necessarily willing to just wanting to build straight away. But actually ask, is this the right thing people are interested in? Or you answering the right questions rather than just I coach something straight out the door. I think it's about picking your moments and finding people who are actually willing to question and challenge and kind of go against the status quo a little bit upward, because they're willing to build and they're willing to get things in the right place before actually investing a huge amount of time in and credits and money in building the wrong thing.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, I think we talk a lot about being able to move faster with AI, but that doesn't have to mean that we're getting to the endpoint faster. It can mean that actually we're focusing on iteration and getting better product market fit and having more confidence in the solutions that we're building before we actually take them live. So let's talk about that a little bit more, because of course you can't have this conversation without talking about human in the loop, but I think there's this tendency to think that it's like kind of just at the end and making sure someone's like reviewing and making sure that there's nothing like particularly egregious in what gets delivered. And so we all believe that discernment and judgment is really critical, but I'd be interested to hear from this group what lessons you've learned about like what are those moments where you think that humans should be guiding the agents so that you can have confidence in these more generative outputs. And you kind of seeded one of them, right? Like right at the beginning, what does that look like? What are you building?
I think for us, when we were working on a project for Voices here at Us2, the human in the loop was actually more involved there about building on the right from the right basis. So getting the journalists, getting the data engineers in those early conversations to mean that when you're building products and you're trying to release a product that's based on news that is non-biased, the content it's consuming, information it's recommending further reading or additional insights from is actually based on the realities of the people who are writing that content or the people who are building that model to then deliver on that. So Humans in the Loop, I think, from that project specifically, was actually about getting everyone in the right room to start off with before you were even building. And then Human in the Loop later on, of course, to make sure the models are delivering on the things that we're trying to answer for consumers. But I found it actually more Human in the Loop earlier on rather than later really helped that project particularly.
Yeah, I guess one of the workflows that is probably as most relevant from Block was starting to automate or use agents in our like content creation. So we, instead of having our copywriters or SEO strategists, our publishing folks doing a long list of human work, we had agents who would spin up the first draft of a blog post, who would send it into Slack to get human feedback from stakeholders, send it back, do another version, hopefully get sign off, write the social copy, send it to the SEO agent who optimized for SEO, send it to the publishing agent who puts it in the CMS, so that eventually I can just go into and see a fully finished draft that's been approved by all the right people and hit send. I will say transparently, we built it and proved it out to some degree, but like it breaks a lot, and you could build a brilliant tool that you think, okay, 2 feedback rounds will do the job, brilliant, and then it's like, we've got way more things to complain about than 2 feedback rounds. So
Yeah, every SLA I've ever had has gotten totally destroyed by feedback rounds.
your sort of perfect idea of like, oh, this workflow is going to be brilliant and it's just, we're going to do it all with agents and it's going to work perfectly every time, is usually untrue. So yeah, there's definitely some things to be worked out there. But yeah, it's the other thing I will say is that only worked at all because we had 3 years of amazing training data from brilliant copywriters who really honed the tone of voice, and we had an entire blog's worth of copy and content for them to learn on. So the agents did a good job because of the humans, which gives you some hope.
One of the things that we've also thought about it quite a bit is making AI accessible. And oftentimes when you talk about AI experiences, you're thinking about really rich experiences that are for digital savvy people and doing all these amazing things and driving new types of user behavior. But there's been some work that we've done recently that was allowing us to be involved in SMS and bringing AI experiences to a completely more accessible platform for anyone, right? Anyone who has a cell phone, forget about a smartphone, could be a part of this. I would love to hear, Ali, a little bit about how you've how you think about brands building trust in some of these new environments when someone might not be as tech savvy and might be leveraging AI for the first time or in an unexpected way.
Sure. RVO Health, the smoking cessation app that Helen mentioned at the beginning, it's in a wonderful constraint. It's just a text message. There's a purity to it. But it did take an awful lot of engineering behind the scenes, guardrails. I always liked John Mader's book Simplistic. The amount of work that goes into making something simple. My best friend growing up's mum had a picture on the wall of a duck, and it said "cool and calm on the surface, paddling like fury underneath." And the effort that goes into making something that works, there's a lot, and it is about having humans there, like QA, like testing stuff. You've probably seen the McDonald's or the DHL chatbots where someone's like, can you give me a bubble sort in Python? And it's like, sure thing. And we had the same consideration with the smoking cessation, and there are tests, and it will always bring you back to saying, okay, so you want to talk about baking. Baking is a good way of managing your cravings and keeping yourself busy, but let's get back to your plan. And there's a lot of personalization. It knows who you are. There's a lot of complex engineering behind the scenes. All the user sees is just a text message, but to get to that point where it's trusted, it's not going to start spamming you, it's not going to start talking to you, it's something that you can trust, and it's giving you useful health information, and it remembers your triggers, and it remembers what you've been doing. There's a lot of engineering that goes into that, and a lot of people, like experts, who manage it and maintain it and input into the system and review things and stuff. So it's a very human system. Yeah, it was cool.
We saw a lot of that when we were working on Inflection as well. So that was in 2022. But essentially, it was a chatbot. It was very emotionally quotient, as Helen mentioned earlier. So they had the model that was very aware of your emotions and not. Essentially, it was more aware and able to bounce off and keep you in a great state of mind. But it was a blinking cursor, and people didn't know the kind of questions, didn't know the power of the model. So what we then had to do was actually more of a brand and design job to make it people understand how they could use it, what kind of questions they could answer the model, how it could respond, how you could tweak and change it. I think that was one part. When something can be so platform agnostic, how can you then use the platform that someone is visiting on to get the best out of it, whether that's emoji reactions on like iMessage, whatever it might be, to try and create that safe space. And then secondly, it was about multimodality on that project as well. So getting people to open up a bit more in ways that they felt comfortable, and that can be cultural. So some markets talking more to a model because that's how they felt like they wanted to talk about something that was more personal to them. Whereas other markets much prefer to type that out in long form than talk. And you're seeing a lot of that with how people are dealing and talking with models, even building our process perspective now. I think that there's still this approach when models are so powerful, is how you actually create a branded experience that feels genuine and trust building when you're talking about things that are financial, that are regulated, that are medical, where it's incredibly important and sometimes heartbreaking for people.
Yeah, absolutely. You've touched on something that's really interesting that I heard recently, that is this idea that like brand becomes the moat when everyone can become a product creator on some level. And I mean, I think all of us would kind of agree that brand is pretty dang important. But when you're talking about generative interfaces, being able to bring your brand system into that is really challenging. And I would love to hear how you guys have addressed that in building these types of experiences.
Yes.
Lots of Comic Sans sort of showing up.
So with the brand, we introduced a brand to it, Inflection, and I think that was actually more done in a few different ways. It goes beyond just the visuals then with a model. It's the tone, it's the kind of the system instructions that you're giving to the model to then make it feel like the actual reaction you're getting from that chatbot, that experience isn't just ChatGPT, or it isn't just whatever model you're paying to use from an enterprise perspective. It's actually something that's more genuinely trained to be your brand and actually taking the time to respond to that. So I think from a model perspective, you'll see that. And then, as Ali mentioned earlier, from a design system perspective, you have to be able to set up the framework correctly. So when something is generated on the fly, it's generated knowing the restrictions of the thing it's trying to output, whether it is someone asking to see a graph in a certain way or the X and the Y axis, actually knowing that you should use this design system for that model. So I think there's a systemized part of it, and then there's also the brand part of it. It has to work simultaneously.
Bit of a random one, but do you guys think that brand is all the more like critical for trust building now, or is that me being hopeful as a brand strategist by trade?
Yes.
Great.
Also, yes.
Handle done.
No, I mean, like, AI is like a great averaging machine, you know? It's like, put your bad idea into the schlock machine and then hope that something good comes out. It's like, there's a lot of people that think it's this magic black box that you put things into and like magic comes out the other end, and it isn't it, right? And so like, if everybody can create like whatever they want, at some point it's just like, well, what's behind this? You know, it's like, is someone doing this for nefarious purposes? Are they trying to like mine data out of me, whatever, blah, blah, blah. Then you're like, yeah, I'm just going to go with Coke because that's the brand I know and trust, you know? And then they actually have incentive to maintain credibility and trustworthiness and all that kind of stuff, where like, yeah, instant access to everything in the universe is not necessarily a good thing, you know what I mean?
And I also think humans, we're just drawn to meaning, and like the more sloppy AI we get, the less meaning it has. So the more the brands can reinforce meaning behind what they stand for and the values that they first make, we'll be stronger for it.
Okay.
And you just made me think about SEO, which very different.
Yes. But went into the good stuff. But
all, they're always like snake oil sellers saying, oh, you got to do this, you got to do that. But really, it's about creating good content that's interesting that people want to read. That was always the secret of SEO. And it's the same for geo now. It's just like delivering something that people want. And if you can do that, that's like the hard thing, isn't it? That's the really hard thing. But if you can do that, that you'll be in the LLM outputs, and you'll be, at the top of everyone's thing.
Well, yeah, but too is if you look at like the places where AI has like taken over, particularly in like content distribution, it's like how much do people trust anything that's on Twitter anymore? Or like when was the last time any of you posted anything on Facebook? It's like there's nothing there. It's just garbage all over the place, and that's like maybe that's a window into the future, like where AI's capable. And then there's going to be the gems, that's going to be the stuff that wins, like the stuff that people actually put care and time and love and humanity into.
Yeah. I was talking to one of our strategists today who was saying that like when the day comes that we're all just like feeding these machines, he's going to go and become an artisan sandwich maker, because everyone is going to just want the sandwich that someone put their hands on and actually built lovingly, rather than the one that got like sent to them via drone. I'm okay with that future anyway. The artisan sandwich is mine. I am from San Francisco, so. So one element of trust that we haven't actually talked about is how you build trust with internal stakeholders or leadership, maybe less so at Block, because there is obviously a lot of enthusiasm for AI, and as well with clients. I think we've historically treated ourselves as kind of the architects of these products and thinking about like, this is exactly what I'm going to build, and here's the blueprint, and this is what's going to deliver, and so on. And really, it's now we're more tending to a garden and trying to create the circumstances in which these things can thrive, but we don't know exactly what's going to bloom and how it's going to happen. And that's a complete shift in how we think about our roles and how we engage with decision makers. So what I'd love to hear from this group is how these technologies and solutions have changed the way that you build confidence when designing these interfaces, when kind of selling them through either to clients or to senior stakeholders.
At that point, what needs to be done is actually, when people are consuming and seeing content from such providers where they're being told they can do it themselves, or their friend's daughter in the garage can make it in an evening, I think it's actually an education piece as to, yes, they can, that's great. However, the reason that you need to slow down, the reason that you need to actually pick your right battles and come to an agency such as us two, is to actually do that right and put the guardrails, because if you do it in a garage on a weekend, it likely will not scale, or it will fall over when you need it to not to fall over, or you'll be building the wrong thing at the wrong time.
Yeah, devil's advocate though, is there a role for it really early on maybe? And
yeah, you're seeing this across the board, right? Everyone is building, and that's great. I think that's a place that means that you want to be working closer together, and you're seeing teams that are smaller and hats are being interchanged left, right, and center. I think that means that actually people are carrying working towards a goal together. Those discipline silos that previously been challenges just aren't there, and because you're able to work together. But I think it is still about making sure that communication, that collaboration is done effective. It isn't just 3 people, 4 people going away and doing things separately, and then coming back and saying, I've built it, what do you think? It's actually, let's get together, work out what we're building, build it, and then come together and report.
I was gonna say, like, the wise take on this, I think, is interesting, because like it's always been a very prove it kind of organization, and so like a lot of things that we've had to do here have been like, I think what's really kind of become apparent is that it's called design, not assembly. And like you see people trying to do things with AI, and it's like you can tell that they're just like assembling shit. It's like design systems are great, but they're there to make you faster, not to replace the designers. If you're building design systems so the designers didn't have to show up to work every day, we would have all been fired a long time ago. Like, that's not what that's for. You know what I mean? It's there to take the toil out of the job, not the like magical part. And so like I think, like I've said for a long time, it's like often the last 5% is 50%, and so it's still like you can spend more time on that last 5% if like the other stuff is just happening faster.
all right, we've got a little bit of time left. We'd love to open up to the crowd for questions, and send them to anyone in particular, or we can keep it open to whoever wants to be brave enough to answer.
You? I've just been doing a bit of research into
this idea of balancing false negatives but false positives. When is it better that the AI is wrong, or is it better that that the AI doesn't know? And what builds more trust in the user? And I guess there's two parts to the question. One is, which in your experience builds more trust in the user? And the second is this something that the UX design, the UX designers focus on, or is it something that the engineering side looks on, or is it a collaborative process?
To answer the latter first, I'd say both. I think you're seeing a lot of kind of model designers or kind of people that sit in between the two, and I don't think it is this, oh, that's a development or engineering problem, or that's a design problem, because then it's just going to fall between the gap at that point. So I think when it comes down to kind of system instructions in particular, there has to be a set of clear instructions up front and then default what that might be. But it's then a reliability between the disciplines to get to something that feels reliable. Answer your first bit, from, or at least from my perspective, I think we're still at a point where people are aware of hallucinations and they're quite comfortable with knowing that if they get a wrong answer, they're kind of cool with that, because it's okay. But it depends on the context of where that question's being answered and the answer it's trying to give. If it was in a heavily regulated healthcare system and it was giving me wrong answers about cancer care, for example, I'd probably be wanting zero hallucinations in that particular example. I'm asking for where Tom Petty's from, and it says not Florida. I think I'm Florida.
I mean, I think it also comes down to digital literacy too, right? Like, a lot of us are designing for general populations, but also a lot of these more like generative AI experiences and more tech are focused on more tech savvy users. But the same way that a lot of us had to tell our parents, like, no, just by posting that Facebook, you can't use my data, doesn't mean that they're actually not going to collect your data. There's different levels of literacy amongst different audiences, and I think we have to be very respectful and understanding of those audiences and meet them where they are when we're building these experiences.
I think you're seeing a lot of anti-AI now as well, and a lot of commencement speeches where the kids are essentially booing the mention of AI because of potential impact on employability in the future. But also I think it's just a case of people getting tired of the incessant kind of treadmill of it. I think that will increase ever going. I think it's about them just making sure that it is being used effectively, or it then becomes a background to an experience valuable to people and is answering or delivering on tasks that are removing the toil and actually delivering something that's actually important, and regardless if it's AI, it's personalization, it's very simple JavaScript at that point.
Yeah. I'm really actually, the last time, as I'm aware, AI was discussed in this room from a strategic point of view. Something that's really stuck with me from that panel was people's use of AI as individuals and then bringing them to the group. Look what my AI did, and bringing that into collaboration or spaces. And I'm really curious in your perspective as experience creators and design leaders, what does trust look like amongst the team? And when you're talking about design leadership, what's changed, or how do you deal with this immense amount of content that could be brought to a design review that maybe hasn't fully been fully crafted by the person bringing it? Or how do you collaborate around the early stages of a design system, for example, or a brand identity?
Yeah, I think one of the things that we've been kicking around internally is like, we use this 2x2 kind of to like decide how to approach problems. And the 2x2 is basically on one axis, it's like, are you operating in a well-defined space or in a novel space? Like, are you basically in optimization mode, or are you in creation mode? And then is the output or is the success criteria a single falsifiable hypothesis, or is it a subjective thing? And so like an example of that, so like a lot of stuff where it's in like an established space where there's a single falsifiable hypothesis, you now are seeing like very high fidelity prototypes like right out of the gate. So like at Wise, it's like the send flow, it's like a whole bunch of forms and kind of stuff like that. Well-established space, exactly what's going to happen. The number's going to go up, the number's going to go down, and it's going to be like the determination of whether the thing was good or not. You have other places like landing pages, right, for like product marketing or stuff like that. It's a well-established space, but the the success criteria is not black or white. Like it's subjective. Like is the headline clever? Does the photo have the right spirit that we want for this thing? Like there's a million answers and none of them are necessarily right or wrong. It's kind of a strategic decision. That's like one of those places where you probably don't want to cut to like AI straight away, because like you want to like kind of experiment and stuff like that. And then there's like in the other places where it's like if it's total blue sky 0 to 1, you don't really know what the answer is going to be. Like that's where I actually push teams to like lower the fidelity a ton. Like go back to like pencil sketches, or like we use content outlines a lot, where it's just like a bulleted list of features that you're going to put on a page, and then it's like then you work that up to like headlines. You work that up to headlines and subcopy, and then like created spikes of, you know, this could be an animation, this could be a graph, this could be a thing, could be whatever. I find like what ends up happening is people try to cut to like AI prototypes too quickly, and then you just see like 3,000 iterations of the same thing rather than like directions, you know. Yeah, like I think we are losing something in the like universe of like sit down and draw it, dude. Like, you know, it's like there's still something to that. Working through a problem that way is kind of useful.
I think it can be a real faux pas on a team when someone produces something that's AI generated and doesn't need a signpost. So I'd say it's not a prototype, presents it as actually their work, but it's not good quality. Because then I think it's just a standard like, well, if someone on your team isn't performing, what do you do about that? How do you give them the feedback? On the engineering team, you know, PRs can go up, pull requests, people can submit code, and you know, we're all using AI nowadays, but you have to be able to defend every single line. You have to be able to say, like, I understand absolutely, and I would have produced this myself. It might have taken me a bit longer, but I would have done. And when that doesn't happen, because yeah, if it's just like one person producing a prototype for a thing, fine, go all out, like vibe coding everything, fine. When you're part of a team, you're all accountable to each other, and there are quality standards, and those haven't gone away, you know. And so yeah, in the early days, I remember product owners, you know, using AI to write tickets in Jira, and you pick it up and you're like, what? And that can have a real detrimental impact on a team, you know, because there's stuff that's been hallucinated in there, and it's so yeah, we're all accountable for our output. And I just think it's like, well, how do you manage it when it does happen, when people aren't performing that well? It does happen sometimes.
Yeah, you just touched on something that we've been having an interesting conversation internally as well about the difference between mechanisms and processes. And like in engineering, you have the benefit of the mechanism of a pull request. Is like you branch code, you make modifications, you merge it, you do a PR that triggers a code review, and then you have to go defend the thing. And like you can't game the system because the like mechanism is built into the way shipping code works. Design, everything's a process. It's like when teams are moving super fast and doing all this stuff, and like everybody wears every hat, like processes are the first things that get skipped, and then that's when quality like goes to the floor. And so now like the big conversation is like, how do we work mechanisms into the design process so you know that like something hasn't just been like slopped into the world and then thrown up and then puts us in all kinds of like, you know, legal trouble or whatever. And it's like there's things that the things that scare me are like not the like most obvious things. It's like we still do brand photo shoots, right? But we've had to rewrite all of our contracts with like the models that are in the shoots, so that like their likenesses can be reused for AI kind of like duplication. So like we'll do say like 26 key shots and then turn that into 2,600 like videos and like extrapolations of that and stuff like that. But like not every model in every photo has like signed away their life to be like re-replicated by AI. So if some random person sitting in some office somewhere just decides to like crank something through Gemini and then like puts it up on the internet, and that person finds it, it's like, ooh, that just cost us a lot of money. So that's like those are the things that really kind of concern me right now, is that they're like, how do you stop that, I guess, or prevent like those kind of mistakes from happening? Yeah, I just like and I think there's a ton of cautionary tales out there now of like people who haven't done a good job of that. Klarna famously, you know, firing their whole CS department and then the plane immediately crashing into the mountain.
I think we've got time for one more in the room question.
Was actually quite similar to what you were saying from a design perspective. The level of quality when articulating a design, once it's kind of being supported by AI, it's kind of the level of quality I was kind of questioning on that is like with the new processes of using different AI tools that you guys have, how do you go about making sure that your articulation to your clients, the team, is the level that you would have if you designed something and solve that problem yourself?
So I think it's essentially, as a designer, as any member of an us two project, if you're putting something in front of a client or an internal team member, you shouldn't be putting it in front of them if you're not confident in every decision that's been made there. Whether you've used Figma to create it by hand or you've used Lord Code to make it and then push it back into Figma or whatever. I think if there's a bigger problem then from a cultural perspective, if people are just trying to shortcut things, and that could be down to being asked to do things too quickly, or they're not trained enough, or they're not skilled enough to be able to do that themselves. And that's a different challenge, as we've mentioned. Then it's more about, you want to give people the confidence to know when to use those tools for the right tasks, not just using the tools because they're brand new and shiny and everyone's talking about all socials.
I guess it's also a balance, because working within the industry for the last 20 years, I love that I could hire a sketch artist to do a storyboard, and now I'm seeing AI generated ones, and a bit of my heart is like dying, even though I know that's quicker and it's faster for different clients, but it's just like, no, that's an art form. So I think it's on us as designers of product and technical to almost have that ethical eye on a lot of the AI work that we're doing and producing, to make sure, does this actually feel like along with solving that problem?
It's also managing expectations of what that fidelity is going to be. You know, we might build an animatic and that's not what the commercial is going to look like, but you kind of communicate that if you're talking to in-user testing, for example. Slightly harder when you're talking about presenting things to senior leaders or to external partners who might get really attached to how something looks or how it behaves. And that's where having really high fidelity solutions like that historically has been great. And I think we, as an industry, need to train ourselves in communicating very clearly, like, what is AI, what might change, and how will this evolve when we go into full production? Interrupted you. Panelists, I'm sorry, I'm jumping in. All right, with that, the last question. So we obviously, have worked a lot in healthcare, financial services, and so on. And both of those areas are absolutely changing very rapidly with AI. If you had your crystal ball out and you had to make a guess, what is the next industry that you think is going to go through some significant changes, evolution perhaps for the better, with these new technologies?
I was gonna be flippant. I was gonna say like all of them. Like there's a new documentary, newish, kind of like a month and a half ago, called the AI Doc. I don't know if anyone's seen it. If you haven't, you should check it out. It's really good. But like they talk about how they're talking about how in every other technological breakthrough, like an improvement in rocketry, like is an improvement in rocketry, but that doesn't also improve cancer research. AI is the only one where it's like it's going to improve rocketry and cancer research and every other thing simultaneously. And I don't really think we even have grokked like how significant this change is going to be. Sorry, use the term grok. We're not. It's not going to be grokked. They're not winning. But yeah, it's like I think the true like scale of the transformation and change that's going to happen because of the AI revolution that's happening right now is unfathomable. I think we have definitely not come to grips with what it all means. I hope it's a time of abundance, everyone.
And universalistic income, and what else can we get?
I mean, I completely agree. Everyone's going to face this. The thing that I think I ruminate more on with my crystal ball gazing is how the org structure will change for agnostic of industry. Like, how do we build architecture and systems that work for every single stage and size of company with this new technology that's also changing every single day? This is wild. Like, the enterprise businesses have got huge platform builds ahead of them, like 3 to 5 years minimum to build these systems to make it compliance with the governance that they need. Whereas like the SMEs have got maybe like a bit of an advantage here. Like, you can actually be super nimble and build architecture that you can like really do amazing things with really tiny teams that do stuff that we've never been able to do before. So I think it's org charts and system architecture that keeps me up at night, which is really a boring answer. Sorry.
I actually think that's where the most exciting stuff here. It's like all the exciting stuff's the most boring stuff. That it's like you can actually do a lot in terms of like the other thing. This is kind of a non sequitur, but like one of the things we've been talking about kind of a lot is like treating agents like employees and employees like agents, and this idea of documentation as code. And so like not writing a separate set of instructions for AI agents, but like writing a universal set of instructions that's like, this is the strategic reason why we're doing this project, this is the scope of it, this is the structure we're going for, this is the skeleton of the thing we're making, this is what the surface should look like from a tone of voice, look and feel, etc. kind of a way. Those guidelines that you're writing for an AI agent to go execute against are the exact same instructions you can give to a whole team of people to go do the parts that AI can't do. And as much as you're trying to like drive those two things together, means everybody's pulling in the same direction, and you actually get to a place where like things move more predictably in the same direction, because you're basically just like, if you're doing filing bugs, for instance, there's not like the AI bug detection register and the human bug detection register. There's just the bug detection register, and then things have been put in by humans or AI, and they've been fixed by humans or AI, depending on whether or not the AI is capable of it, or it takes, we're talking about a human going in and like turning on a screen reader and going through and like confirming that the thing worked. That's the thing I'm really excited about. It's like actually making teams more effective because of the thing. So like amplifying everybody's output, and then taking away the parts that are no fun for anybody, or it's just basically a waste of time. And like, I don't think we're ever going to have to do a zillion iterations. Like the thing we're using it for, like on your brand question, it's like brand videos. It's like we used to have to like put in like translations manually and like swap out the images for like different markets, and then swap out like, in the WISE universe, it's like currency symbols and flags. It's like now you just make the thing once, like point an agent at it, go to lunch. It's like, come back, there's 160 versions. Sweet. Like I think that's the unlock.
I've actually been spending a lot of time kind of think more hopeful about it. There's been a lot of negative AI. Everyone's going to be out of jobs. Everyone's going to be in struggles and depression and all. And I think actually Benedict Evans specifically spoke about it on Lenny's podcast yesterday, that he was essentially talking about how we've been through this before and everything was fine. We've had the rise of the internet, had the rise of mobile, and everyone was fine. Everyone adapts, everyone changes. And I think trying to flex and understand that actually this is just another, yes, it's incredibly changeable and it's sector agnostic, but actually it's another thing that's happening, and it's exciting, and it creates opportunity for those who are AI native, and a lot of those are more junior talent who have been know nothing more than this. I think the flip side of that, everyone's commenting on how that generation is going to be jobless, and I think actually there's a huge opportunity for people in industry to rely on people who only know that and aren't restricted by the years of knowledge to before the rise of AI. So I think there's a huge opportunity here for us to be and try and finish on a positive, everything will be fine.
I appreciate that. Well, guys, thank you so much. This has been really fascinating. And thank you all for sticking around. Please go enjoy some more food and drink in the other room. And that's all.